What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for tuning in. And before I dive in on what settings you can put in your Action 6 to make it the most cinematic, let me say thank you so much for all the new subscribers. I highly appreciate it. It's an honor for me to be here with you guys, and welcome to the family. Welcome to the channel. I hope you have been having a good time learning about photography or videography or whatever. I just hope you're having a good time hanging out with me here. So thank you so much. And for the new people here in the channel, my name is Lucas and we talk about a bunch of stuff. We always talk about something related to photography, videography, and how to just be better and make things better with what we have. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And let's dive in. We're going to talk about today this bad boy. This is the Action 6, the DJI Action 6, and it's a beast. And I want to dive in with you guys in which settings you can actually put in your camera to make sure that you get the most cinematic footage out of this little beast. So the first setting you want to change in your Action 6 is change it to D-Log M. When shooting in log, you make sure that the camera is capturing every single data possible and available to that camera. So then later on, you can grade and change the footage the way you like. It's way better than having the camera do that for you. I have a video about how to shoot in log, so I'll be linking somewhere in the screen so you can check it out. The second setting that you want to make sure that you're using with the DJI Action 6 is the capability of shooting with a full sensor. So the DJI Action 6 is the first camera to actually be a square sensor, or almost a square sensor. It is a 1 by 1.1 inch sensor. So using the whole sensor, you are making sure that you are taking the most dynamic range that the camera can capture. And if you don't know what dynamic range is, think about this way. When you go outside and you look at a very bright scene, you don't see anything either overexposed or underexposed. You see pretty much everything well exposed and nice. But the cameras cannot do that. The cameras will either read a highlights or some shadows. So in order for you to be able to capture the best image, you want to have the most dynamic range you can possibly have in your disposal. So with this camera, you can have higher dynamic range if you shoot in full sensor, making sure that your image is well captured, and therefore you can add it later on to make it more cinematic. When you're shooting with a full sensor, you want to make sure that you're recording in 4K, 25 or 30 frames. I normally use 25 or 60 for slow motion, and rock steady. Rock steady is the best stabilization one because it's not very robotic and it's still gives you a little bit of motion and shaking, because that is something that you also want. So make sure that you put rock steady and make sure you're shooting in 4K or 8K, but 8K has its limitations. You probably heard before that ND filters are like sunglasses to your lens, and it actually is true, and it's just a very good analogy because that's how it actually works. So make sure that you have ND filters, because then you can use the 180-degree rule with your Action 6, meaning you want to be shooting at 25 frames per second, which is what gives you the most natural motion blur, and it's only possible if you're shooting in manual exposure and an ND filter. Otherwise, it's going to be completely overexposed and you will not be able to recover at all, and it just looks awful and you cannot use it. I have the ND filters from DJI and they come with a 8, 16, 8, 32. Most of the time I'll be using the 8 or the 16, which is for sunny, cloudy-ish days, but for very, very, very sunny days, you might really want to use the 32. Choosing the right focal length, it's probably the most important setting to make sure that your Action 6 does not look like an action camera. So in that matter, make sure that you're using the right focal length. I like to use the D-Warp standard, which pretty much gives me a better focal length, and it's around 15 millimeters, so it's not that distorted, and I can use it for pretty much anything. You can vlog with it, you can just shoot anything else you want, and it's not going to be looking like fisheye camera like a normal normally does with action cameras. So make sure that you change it to standard dewarp. The Dji Action 6 is the first ever camera to provide us with a variable aperture. That is a feature that most cinema cameras have, and they added onto this one, which is something pretty cool because if you are shooting in low light, you can use the lower f number, but most of the time you want it to be shooting at f4. And the reason is because most of action cameras, they don't keep you in focus because you have an infinite focus. So when you're using like a lower aperture number, it's like your face is never in focus. So you want to use the f4 to make sure that everything is in focus. And in this camera in particular, when you're using the f4, your minimal focus distance is lower. So in this case, I think it's about 20 centimeters, which is pretty good. So you can hold the camera very close to yourself without losing the focus, or the camera just don't know what to focus on. So I like to shoot that in f4, so I always change it. And if you are vlogging, you can also use the macro lens combined with an f4 aperture, and it will give you a very nice shallow depth of field. Just bear in mind though, if you are using the macro lens, you unfortunately cannot use the ND filters with it, so most likely you will need to be shooting in auto exposure. Make sure that you know that, because you will be losing some of the motion blur. When shooting action cameras, the most giving of it all is the amount of texture and contrast that those cameras produce. So one thing that you want to change on your Action 6 is the texture and the noise. So normally what I do is I put it down my texture to -2, and I reduce my noise reduction to -2 or -1, depending on how I'm actually shooting. But make sure that you put them down so you can add them later if you want to, but at least you're not having that crazy sharpness and contrast footage out of the camera. And a bonus tip for you guys here, make sure that you change the bitrate from low to high. And the way to do this, you just need to swipe down and go right on the gear icon and find bitrate. Make sure that you change it for high, because your footage will be a lot better with the high bitrate. And that's pretty much it. Very straightforward, very easy to set up. The camera is a beast. I think is a great addition to the kit, but it will not replace my main camera. Like, I still find that the Action 6 is a little bit noisy in some scenarios, even if you're shooting in manual mode or with NDs and you're exposing it properly. I just find that the image quality is good, but it's still not near enough as my Sony a7 IV or an FX3. Like, it's just no way. And I also want to share with you guys some of the accessories that I use to make sure that I can take this camera to a next level. And one of them is the nice tripod. I normally use the Joby tripod, and what I did here, if you guys can see, is that I used the small Joby tripod, and I got this PGY Tech like release plate thing that I just attach it to the head of my tripod, and then I put this little plate and I attach it to the Osmo 6 head, and then I can just plug it in like this and attach the camera like that. So then with this I can vlog, I can use the camera, I can put them down, because if you are using the monopod that comes with the camera, you can only hold it, but you cannot place it anywhere. So if you want to film yourself, or if you want to film something that you want to put the camera on the floor, you cannot. So that's why I use this little rig, and it helps me a lot because it's a lot smaller as well. And if I am doing action sports, then you might as well want to use the other one, because you don't really need to place the camera somewhere. And another thing that I actually got is a other tripod, which I can place it on the floor and extend it the height, so I can make sure that my composition is correct when I'm using the Action 6, because that's mainly what you want. You want to make sure that your shot is well composed, but for that you need sometimes a little bit height, or you need to put a camera in different places, which then it brings me to another thing that I like to use, which is not here, but you guys have seen before, is MoRig Magic Arm. Make sure that you have one of those, because you can just place your Action 6 anywhere you want, and it's a very cheap addition. Now, is this the best ever camera? look, it's a very good camera. It's a very nice, good action camera, but it's still going to be an action camera. And I think the quality is still not there. I believe that I prefer, obviously, like my big camera, which is, I know is a completely different camera, completely different category. And yes, it's a very powerful one. Something I wish you could have with the camera is maybe a little brighter screen. I notice when you're shooting outside, sometimes you can't see much because you cannot tilt the screen. You have to look at that depending on where you place the camera, and maybe a little bit more information about the level of the camera, because yes, I know the camera adjusts the horizon, but it's just, I don't know, it's nice to see. It would be nice to see a maybe horizon line, so you would make sure that you are putting your camera on the right place, and a little bit more information maybe about like exposure or things like you can see on the screen when you're filming. Other than that, the camera is really solid. The battery is amazing. It lasts for a long time, and it's nice that you can unscrew this cap in case you actually break one. You can replace it. They're normally really cheap, and they don't really scratch very often, I think, and at least I haven't scratched mine yet, thank God, but hopefully I don't. Overall, very good, very light, very nice addition. Again, you can just put it in your backpack. You're probably not going to feel the weight, and you can probably use for multiple scenarios. I will be using most likely for some quick vlogs, when I'm maybe using for behind the scenes, when I need to be using my main camera either for photography or for video. I think it's pretty cool that you can get these things nowadays, which is really nice. Now, it is a camera that you need. I'm not entirely sure if it's something that you 100% need. Maybe think about it, think about where your needs are and what you would be using this camera for. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you took some value out of it. If you're on a fence to buy the Action 6, let me know in the comments what you think, if it's something that you would add to your kit or not. If you want to know more about anything within the Action 6, also let me know in the comments, and I'm more than happy to get back to you. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Once again, thank you so much for all the new subscribers. Thank you for being here, hanging out with me. And if you have any questions regards to anything, please let me know in the comments. I'm already looking forward to the next one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.